So now we are going to go straight on to our discussion, really interview with two experts from Kantar, who I would like to introduce here. I can see Shepherd on the screen. Shepherd Laughlin is the Director of Futures Consulting at Kantar. And we've also been joined by Jeff Herrmann, who is the EVP of Technology, Telecom and Retail. And they've done a lot of work on AI, done a lot of research as well. So what we'd like to do is to start by them giving a sort of abbreviated summary, sort of 10-minute or so summary of, what they've discovered.
Thank you, Joanna, and good morning, everyone. My name is Shepherd Laughlin. I am a director with the Futures practice at Kantar, and joined also by my colleague Jeff. We're going to take you through some results we have on consumers and AI, so kind of shifting from the perspective of a marketer to a consumer, and then with implications for marketers. And I'm just going to do a very quick flyover of some of the key findings we have around this. I'll be sharing a bit of data. Actually, I'm glad, Joanna, that you're joined by Greg from the MMA, because some of this data was collected in partnership with the MMA. So thank you, Greg, for your partnership there originally. So what we see is that more than half of consumers are using AI at least a few times a week. When we say AI, we mean kind of the LLMs and the generative AI tools that have risen to prominence over the past few years. This is an 18 to 70 sample, so this is everyone. This is not just a specific population. We're seeing a fifth of people saying that this has really transformed their lives already. It is important also, though, to look at, kind of variations in the population. And one of the biggest is simply by age. So when we look at younger people, 18 to 35, we see that almost 4 in 5 of them are using AI at least a few times a week for different tasks. They say that they're really integrating it into their personal lives. So 55% of Gen AI users agree that the conversations they've had feel as real as the ones they have with people. 50% say that Gen AI understands me and my needs. 48% say they've turned to it for comfort, advice, or emotional support. We hear a lot about like, oh, can this AI really think? Can it really feel things? It's almost beside the point, because people feel things when they interact with it, which is interesting to keep in mind. At Kantar, we have a particular model for thinking about all of the ways that people are using AI. So imagine a person at the center of this, not the technology, a person, and then, all of the things that they're using it to do. So they might want to use it to be more creative. They might want to use it to manage their emotions, or to talk to other people better, or for more of those analytical or structured things that we're used to doing with computers. And when we look at the, sort of quantitative perspective on this, we find that, in the general population, many people agree that AI, they can do these things better with AI than by themselves. From, the most is 58% learning new things, to the least is sort of social life or relationships. This is Gen Pop, and there's about a 17-point spread. If we look at the next slide, comparing Gen Pop to younger consumers, we see that, more than 70% across all of these different tasks, people say they can do this better with AI than by themselves. And there's a much lower spread between those more kind of human type tasks and those more analytical or, structured type tasks. Also, I think an interesting finding is that, we hear a lot about the negative kind of potential societal impacts of AI, but when you ask people how they think AI will impact them personally, it's an overwhelmingly positive sentiment that people have. across actually all age groups. So, again, younger people, it stands out more. But even when we look at, say, the 50 to 70 range, which would include some Gen X and some boomers, we, still find that people, net believe that AI will impact them personally in a positive way.
Yeah,
Um,
Shepherd, we've had one quick question come in. They're
sure.
asking if this is U.S. data or global data.
Thank you. That's important. This is US data. Yeah.
What would it
I
be
do
like?
imagine this.
Yeah, what would it be like globally? Yeah.
Great question. I mean, I kind of can't speculate on data that isn't, that we haven't collected yet. But I mean, the US is, on the more advanced side of AI adoption. I would imagine it's similar in Europe, although maybe a little bit slower given some, governance that they have there. But, in a place like China, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I would love to do a study on China because the tech ecosystem there is, just a completely different beast, as we all know. So that's a great question. Thank you. Um, Consumers want businesses to use AI to improve products and services. So, um, you know, yes, they actually do want you to be using this. The top things were faster, smarter customer service, and we heard lower costs and deals, or for proactive problem solving. But as we see on the next slide, it's also very important to people, perhaps even a bit more, that good governance standards are in place, data and privacy, transparency, and making sure that it doesn't replace humans in the roles that they're needed. And then I have one more slide before I hand it over to Jeff. When we think about the level of comfort with AI, we think about it kind of in three big groups. There's about 25% who are comfortable regardless, 48% who are open to using it, but maybe have some hesitation, and then another 25-ish% that are just simply don't want you using it. So it's interesting. We know that there's a range of opinions on AI from very positive to very negative. It's interesting to kind of see how that breaks down. And then I would kick it to Jeff to, take us more into the marketer perspective on some of this.
So, and it's interesting. Love basically making hurdles or leaps over technology. And what's interesting in the spirit of AI in this conversation, and this is as the question about European usage and European adoption of AI and perspectives and sentiment of Europeans on AI, I hit Copilot real quick internally, and we do have data that we can share, and we'll share it in the chat. So that's a great application of how marketers like ourselves are using AI. So we're all very bullish and optimistic about the future impact of using Gen AI. Use case just did something on the fly, and I actually have multiple windows open in case I get a quick question and I need to answer something that I didn't have prepared. We'll be ready to roll. So the good news is there's so much potential, right? So we're all very excited about the use, but as far as our readiness is concerned, and so that's the big challenge we have around readiness, because we know there are compliance initiatives, we know the critical nature of decision making, and we know some decisions can be made rapidly, but others, when it relates to brands and the legacy that needs to be protected, and the spirit and the drive for innovation, there's just a careful balance. So from a marketers, what are the implications facing marketers? Well, Kantar is taking this very seriously, and we've been leveraging AI and machine learning for many years now. And the whole notion here is that this is a complex process, and the world is changing fast. But we have fully invested in resources to make sure that this is basically this data and how this path of evolution happens can be tracked and then equivalized to basically focus on what are the unique elements and components of this new world we're in, but then at the same point, how to make it relative to create a path forward. So really, don't want to get too deep into methods here, but essentially it's all about using agents and tracking, and then really just taking the volume of clickstream data available, the agentic world, and then creating a GEO generative engine optimization strategy and activation plan. And this whole notion of how what's important to really think about. So you feel like we need to get close to consumer behavior, right? So there are, we're marketing now to both consumers and to machines. And so that's a really important consideration as you market to both consumers and machines. And you think, where do you start? Well, starting at the category level, we need to understand, and we're helping the marketers understand what are the role of AI in the consumer journey. And then really importantly, what's the brand presence and brand positioning that a brand has in the world of AI. And so those are all things that, once again, we'd like to move quickly into the Q&A discussion here, but these are all areas in which we're investing in to help support this development path in this rapid and agile fashion.
Okay.
So I'll hand it back to Joanne.
I will kick it off. So where you talked about GEO, you talked about, increasing use of AI by marketers. So where should brands be investing their money? Should it be GEO versus SEO? How should they figure out the balance? Should they be doing ads on Google, or should it be on ChatGPT, which you can now put ads on? And other AI platforms which are rapidly following suit.
I can take that to start. I mean, basically, it's a test and learn environment, right? So the answer is yes. Should they be doing ads across the ecosystem? Yes. Now, what's the method or what degree of investment is deployed across those ecosystems? We have to follow the consumer, and that's what's most important, is following the consumer and seeing their adoption of the LLMs relative to their, how they've been trained to search over the past 20 years. But we know each LLM has its own unique characteristics and its own unique way it interfaces with its consumers and its own unique profile, and it caters to different types of consumers. ChatGPT has a different consumer usage profile than does, Claude or Anthropic or even Gemini. So the answer is, I think, we're definitely in an experimentation mode at the moment.
Do you have
Joanna,
any idea? Sorry, just one quick follow-on to that. Do you have any idea where the proportion of usage of GEO versus SEO sits, where consumers are? I certainly don't.
As far as we are collecting that clickstream data, and so that's part of how we're building the development track, how these models are developing and the consumer interaction. So if you look at basically the journey and the consumers and the actions that start with SEO and then spawn into LLMs, and then the action taken therefore after, there is certainly a way to quantify that.
But nobody's done it yet. What would you guess it was? I mean, is it 70% Google and SEO and 30% GEO, or the other way around? I have absolutely no idea.
It gets even more complicated because many Google searches now also include an AI summary, right? So, in one Google search, you as a brand might need to be optimizing for GEO as well as the traditional SEO. Joanna, I wanted to pick up on, you mentioned the Super Bowl. One of the interesting commercials in the Super Bowl was from Anthropic, which was mocking the notion of having ads in AI, which was quite interesting. And, to your question about GEO versus, ads within LLMs, I think it goes to show you need to do both because, brands will need to be influencing what the LLMs say, but at the same time, also testing and learning from, ads that are native to these new platforms on a ChatGPT, for example. So, you can't just, pick one and go in that lane. You need to be testing and learning in each of those buckets that you defined.
Right. So essentially we don't know. So it's trial and error right now.
No,
Yeah.
but we do see kind of signals of the different LLMs adopting different market positionings. So, to Jeff's point, they may have different consumer bases, and you may need to tailor your strategy based on that.
I mean, that's a very good point because I do think that from a brand point of view, there is a huge opportunity for all these AI companies to differentiate their brands because they're all completely the same right now. It's they completely genericize their brands.
Mm.
So there's another opportunity. Um,
Joanna, we have our first hand raised.
okay,
If you
great.
would like
And
to
I
do
and I
that.
can support your assumption that that the LLMs are essentially the same because we published a map yesterday, a brand health map of the LLM space, and everyone's clustered in the middle, undifferentiated, except for ChatGPT, which tends to rank as a differentiated brand. So that's, as the first mover, it's captured that position, but you can't count out the likes of Gemini.
Okay, so we have a whole number of questions. Um, One is from actually two are from Sandeep Vasudevan. Sandeep, would you like to? Um, I will answer you live, right? I shall get them to answer you live, not me. The first one is: do we have data that points to the biggest barriers to adoption? You said people are hesitant.
Some of the data that I showed, just speaks to some people who just don't see the value of AI. And, if you haven't tried it, then, you don't have examples in your own life of what it's for. So that's one of the big barriers is people just not seeing a utility in it or, finding that, they haven't had a brand show that to them yet. Jeff, what else would you add to that?
No, that's we definitely have that data, and in fact, I was fishing it out as you were speaking.
Hmm.
Mm.
Great. We also have Don Sexton who would like to ask a question live.
Thanks a lot. Joanna, first of all, I thought your remarks were very provocative. I really appreciate them. And actually, they fit very well with Shepherd and Jeff, so good work on that. By the way, just as a side comment, I think agreed with you about the Super Bowl ads. They're as exciting as the first half of the Super Bowl, which, if you didn't see it, was a field goal festival. My question is simply this, and I think this ties in all three of you. It seems to me that now there might need to be a new relationship between the marketing folks and the production folks. And maybe MASB should be MASB PASB, Marketing Accountability Standards Boards and Production Accountability Standards Boards, because of all the different levels, let's say, that customers or consumers might look at when evaluating their purchases. And I'm just wondering if anybody's thinking about that. It did come up in the Kantar results too, the need for marriage, especially between marketing and production.
That's a very interesting thought, which I don't think we've really talked about at MASB. Maybe we should. I don't know if Shepherd and Jeff have any thoughts on that from the data.
I mean, marketing is production these days, right? So we have the tools in our hands to become the ultimate producers of our own content, and that's the ability to create a hero image and hero content, and then derivative content, can happen very rapidly. So it actually puts marketers in the driver's seat. And I know there's often a handshake between marketing and operations and production, but really the tools are at our disposal to just maintain the standards and execute on what we want specifically.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Now we have a question. I have to ask this one from Anon, who wants to know, says it's an important point made about marketing to machines as well as consumers. There's two questions really which relate to this. So how do the attitudes of AI adoption on marketing to machines, not consumers, intersect with trust for that? And a related question is, as AI agents become mainstream, How do brands talk to agents versus humans? I mean, a lot of this is, future, it's already starting, is transactions are made by one agent talking to another agent. How do we ensure that, your AI agents that you're using, are consistent with your brand and behave? Um, would you like, have you had any data on any of that? Any thoughts?
Go ahead, Shepherd, and I'll build.
Well, yes. So, I mean, the when we talk about marketing to machines, a lot of times what we're talking, and particularly agents, a lot of times what we're talking about is this nascent field of GEO that Jeff spoke to. And the funny thing about GEO is that early signs are that a lot of times what the models surface most readily also happens to be the type of content that is useful to people. So, clear kind of description of the benefits of whatever your product is, often, in the form of a list or, easily kind of digestible information is being shown to, show up in models. So it's almost we've come through like an era of digital marketing where we're doing SEO and analytics to another place where there's a new role for sort of the type of content that would be useful to people again, but just now being used by a machine. Jeff, what would you add to that, or in fact, do you actually agree? Because this is a very emerging area for sure.
Agreed. And an agent actually reads a brand. They don't love pretty visual, well
Hmm.
displayed, well designed interfaces. They look for textural
That's
signals,
true.
visual signals, behavioral signals, structural signals, and outcome signals, right? So the as agents interface with brands, it's really about the configuration that the brand has set up to communicate to agents, and it's certainly a different um, connectivity or a different. I mean, in fact, thinking of the question is how would an agent to agent communicate with one another? It makes me think of Claudebot and the rise of their own communities, which has taken the news here in the past couple of weeks. But this is a fascinating topic in real time. And in fact, I love these virtual, short of the echo, these virtual environments. Could you imagine at a conference if you're presenting and you have the audio on and your LLM recording questions in real time and it's giving you the data and the information back to answer questions, because there's such a volume of information to share, and unless you have an encyclopedia brain, you can't really capture and disseminate that. So in many of these cases, I've been hitting our interface to check stats, to verify information, to make sure that everything we're presenting and putting forward is grounded in our methodologies and processes. So I just think this is an interesting use case for the new world of AI and how we're actually sharing information and
Okay.
validating in real time.
I think we have time for a couple of, I have a couple more questions here. And one of which was related to, which one of the questions touches on, which I really would love to ask you. But first of all, one from Kevin Richardson. Did the survey check for consumer awareness of AI blind spots or weak points based mainly on wanting to please? So hallucinating or imputing facts when the engine doesn't know, learning biases of the user, and then playing back that they want to hear. I experienced this yesterday. I asked ChatGPT a question about brand architecture. Knew nothing about brand architecture, and it made up a lot of rubbish. Quite extraordinary. So did you check for that?
We did ask some about hallucinations, and we asked actually also a lot about how people thought that AI would impact society. So, the role of kind of disinformation that people have talked about a lot. And, many people did express, concern about how AI could, lead to disinformation or, even more filter bubbles. But then, equally, they, sort of bought into the notion that This could be used in fantastically new and interesting ways to solve new problems, to make us more creative than ever before. So there's a real mix of, sentiment that reflects, everything we've been hearing in the media from, the potential of these tools to, solve so many problems to, to your point, a lot of the, worries about hallucinations. People have a mixture of all of these sentiments right now because, and that reflects the fact that the conversation, is so new and contains all of those things. The point around kind of sycophancy and, it tells you what you want to hear. That's newer, and we didn't pick it up as much. But if we repeated the survey in a few months, we might, because that's certainly been a rising topic of discussion in the past year.
Yeah, I would put the burden on us, right? Because are we prompting in the right way? Because this is all math, and the more precise the prompt, the more precise the LLM can calculate a response. And so if you ask a broad question with no caveats, you'll probably get an answer that's very broad and maybe heading in the wrong direction. But the more we can, as marketers, be highly precise in our prompting and our interrogating of the LLM and really drill it in, because we are simply just setting up formulas and calculations for insights. So I strongly encourage this notion of prompt engineering and asking the right questions in the right way. We'll then, think about the expansive nature of the LLMs. The better you feed the input, the more precise the output will be.
Frank, there are two more questions here which I'd love to ask. Actually, Shepherd's answering one of them, so I was related. Let me do this very quickly.
Okay.
The first one is from Peter Fasano, and it's a very it's a very knowledgeable question. So I'll guess give where the rubber hits the road. How do we value an influencer mention, not just for human reach, but when it's training the AI to recommend a brand? Have you looked at how that works? The relationship between influencer mentions and AI recommendations?
I mean, we know for a fact that creators have a significant impact on brand recommendations for consumers. And we have plenty of data when you think about the broader social media standpoint, but I'm thinking on the fly. That's a precise answer that I could find out, and I will follow up afterwards, because creators certainly do carry weight, but it's the same weight around an accelerated interest that a consumer might have.
Right. And the last one is, which has come up in various ways throughout the questions, and is also one that I had for you, is, I had an absolutely wonderful consulting experience not so long ago, where I was looking at adoption of and creation and design of risk management standards for AI, not for marketing, but for everything. And I had to talk to the leaders of AI in all sorts of major corporations, ranging from Google and TSMC to Cola Taps. And they all said the same thing, is that the major issue was trust and acceptance, first of all, within their own organizations. And even the tech company guys said this. And the second one was issues of trust and acceptance among consumers. So I just wanted to, raise that, particularly the internal culture one being a real obstacle to the growth of AI. So I'll leave everybody with that thought since we're out of time. So Frank, back over to you, or I'll be in trouble.
Well,
Thank you
thank you.
very much.
Thank you so much. That was remarkable panel discussion, and I wish we had more time to continue that. It was so energetic. So thank you both, Shepherd and Jeff and Joanna.